Today, I want to for us to move on to the wisdom faculty. Obviously, a very big topic, and so much to say. The goal of the spiritual life, wisdom and compassion conjoined. But what I want to do in the context of this retreat is, if you like, not the arahant level of the wisdom faculty or the wisdom power, but how we work with the wisdom faculty moment to moment within our practice. So I want to make 3 points, obviously masses and masses of other points that could be made, and hopefully we'll get popped in some of them through the retreat and you'll bring them out in various questions. But each of the points I hope to have some sort of practical application as to how we work in awareness, whether in formal practice or just through our efforts at continuity of awareness through the activities of our life. So often these practical applications are usually a question we can drop in to the practice, or a way of looking at what's happening in the mind, a reminder of a way of looking. So the first thing I've called the quality of awareness. So this is about the quality of the mind that's aware, the quality of the mind that's noticing or observing other experiences that are happening. Sounds, body sensations, thoughts, and emotions, strong emotions. So we talked a little bit about that yesterday with a question that came up. And so the quality of the mind that's observing, the mind that's aware, can be different to what it's aware of. So there can be there can be quite a lot of anger, so for example, but there can be something that's able to notice what's happening. It's able to recognize, this is anger. And that mind that's observing, that's noticing, can feel different. And you can notice that quality. You can notice how that feels. Vajradevi, do you mind putting the lights on, please? It's a little bit gloomy. Thank you. So the awareness, I've mentioned this word unbiased in relation to awareness. And I want to say a little bit more about that because I think it can be misunderstood. So unbiased can sound a bit cool and distanced, or even lacking in kindness, or the absence of kindness. And it really doesn't mean that. Awareness, it's a positive mental state. It's a skillful mind state. It's not going to be lacking in a quality like metta. So it's unbiased, and what that means is that it helps us become aware of our own biases, our own pre-existing conditions, if you like, the biases that we bring when we observe experience. We'll all have those. And that might be a bias that when we observe what's happening, particularly if it's something a bit difficult or something that there's a resistance to having there, or there's an idea that something else should be happening, we may be observing with a bit of a critical look. Bhante has a load of lovely words when he talks about this. I think in Know Your Mind, he talks about the fault-finding mind and the nitpicking mind, and all those sorts of things. But basically, it's that there are. This is just to give you a sense of there are a lot of different qualities that we can overlook, not notice. We think we're being aware, but actually these types of attitudes and qualities have snuck in. So one way of being able to identify a bit more these types of attitudes, and just to say, it's not wrong that they're there. It's natural that they would be there because they're habits in our makeup, pre-existing biases in the mind. But there's a quality of right mindfulness that I want to bring in here. So mindfulness in its fully developed self, fully developed, has 4 qualities, and I'm not going to go into them all this week, but I want to go into a couple of them this morning. And yeah, this particular one is known as free from desires and discontent in regard to the world. Somewhere I have, yeah, there we go. So free from desires and discontent. So in a way, it's the mind is not biased by, or the awareness is not biased by the things that we like and try to draw towards us, our desires, or the things that we try and push away are discontents. So there's a sense of being able to, we might notice those things as happenings, as objects in the mind, but we're not, they're not, if you like, in the mind that's observing. So with that, the quality of contentment that comes from the mind that's free from desires and discontent, it's quite an important quality when we can allow things to be in the mind. We can allow perhaps things that are quite uncomfortable to experience, shame or grief or anger or irritation. We can allow them to be there and not identify with them, just allow ourselves to notice what they feel like, what they're like in the mind. This takes quite a lot of acceptance, which I think is akin to this mind that's at ease with whatever is happening. There's a lack of agenda or a lack of interfering with what's happening. So I think if we really are able to accept what's happening, not in the sense of giving up around it, but this is what is here now. This is what, I'm not going to fight with it. There's an absence of struggle or complaint about whatever's there. If you like, this is in the territory, for those of you that are familiar with his teaching, in the territory of the second arrow. We're just there with what is happening without the extra, which is struggle, not wanting, or wanting more of. So this is significant because it means that we can have a degree of happiness and contentment in the mind, even when there are difficult things happening, things that so our happiness isn't dependent upon certain things stopping, certain things going away, and it's not dependent upon other pleasant things continuing. So this is different to stoicism or resignation. I hope you can see that. It's a very sort of positive acceptance and ease with, oh, this is how things are. So it's akin to wisdom. It's akin to just, if we really accept how things are, we're not struggling with reality. And these can be very simple things. It can be an acceptance of a sore body part that we're just, okay, this is how it is right now. Yeah, not saying it's pleasant, not enjoying it, but that's there, and I can be with this experience with a mind that's relaxed, that's settled back, that's at some degree of ease. So what we can do, if you like, the action point for this is just check the quality of awareness every now and again. So we're not so much interested in the object, in what's happening, but check into the quality of the mind. What's the feeling in the mind in this moment? And then it's more likely we're able to pick up whether there's a degree of ease or acceptance with what's happening, or whether there's some degree of struggle or complaint, wanting things to be otherwise. And we can have a view that it's inevitable that there'd be, if the unpleasant things are happening, that there'll be some struggle, but it's not. The Buddha said it is not inevitable. It's entirely optional, actually, whether we struggle with what's happening. That's not to say it's easy. It's all very well for the Buddha to say it, but it might take quite a lot of practice for us to do it, especially in moments of a lot of pain or discomfort. So that's the first thing. Second thing is another quality from this definition of right mindfulness, which you can find in the Satipatthana Sutta if you're interested. It's what Analaya calls the definition section, and it's used throughout the Pali Canon to define mindfulness in its fullest sense. So one of the other qualities, it's often put with sati itself, so sati samprajanya or sati sampajanya. So some you can say it in all sorts of different ways, and apparently it means complicated, different sort of grammatical things in Pali. So I say samprajanya or samprajana, clearly knowing what's happening. Also, it's clearly comprehending our purpose. Someone said to me recently, she thought samprajanya was more, it relates to time in some sense. So there's a sense of setting our direction through a direction that follows our values. So we have a purpose, a spiritual direction and purpose. When Satyanandi spoke yesterday about a rudder, that's an image that I've had for many years in my own practice, a sort of spiritual rudder that's like a compass that I can tune into whether it's it points in the direction of my values, but sometimes I can sort of go a bit off course. And so that sense of samprajanya, or keeping in touch with that continuity of purpose and comprehension of purposes is keeps me pointing in the right direction, keeps me asking the question, am I practicing in line with my values, my spiritual values? So in this practice, actually, there's in a way we're setting the compass to particularly to being mindful so that we are rudder. What is a rudder? It's part of a boat, it's part of I always get my backs and fronts of boats mixed up, but anyway, it's a bit that helps you sort of steer in the right direction, I think, through the water. Yes, so awareness. So if you like, our rudder, our compass, another way of putting it, in a way, is like setting an intention and keeping sort of true to that intention. And we can do that on a sort of micro level, if you like, a moment to moment level. My intention in the practice is to be aware. My intention through eating my lunch is to stay present to the tastes, the sensations, the smells, everything about that. We can use sampajanya in this way to keep to an intention, and we can also use it in a really sort of macro way. When we're making decisions about what to change a job, to get into or out of a relationship, how on a level of how we behave in the world, is that in line with spiritual values or not? And of course, I think it's important that we ask any of these questions as open questions, not with an agenda of what the answer should be. In a way, we're asking for information to check in and see. So we won't always be in line, acting in line with our spiritual values. But we can become aware of that, and awareness is the first step to being able to make amends or to do something differently. At the very least, we are then aware of what's happening. So Bhante, he talks about the loss of sampajanya is a lapse into spiritual unconsciousness. I quite like that. I'm not quite sure why, but partly that it sort of experientially does feel a bit like that. It's kind of gone a bit sort of numb or a bit sleepy, or just got a bit sort of wrapped up in some type of distraction or whatever it is. But oh yeah, there's a bit sort of gone underground. And then awareness is, if you like, resurfacing into the moment. Okay, here we are again. Conscious, aware, awake. So I think with sampajanya, with clearly knowing, I talked, I think, yesterday about being active. Receptive doesn't mean passive, but there's also, we keep the initiative in some way, in quite a light way. I think there's quite a fine balance between being overly sort of directing or controlling about where our attention goes and what we do with it, and not recognizing the other side of it is being passive and not recognizing when we do need to do something. If the intention is to be aware and we're always falling asleep, then in a way that sampajanya has disappeared. We're not acting in line with our values. So that's the sense in which we're active. It's to, if you like, re-establish or keep in line with our intention, with keep that continuity of purpose. So if I'm falling asleep, then keeping the initiative would be like, okay, so what can I do here? What can I do to help awareness grow stronger? Not to try and make sleepiness go away, but at this point, what to do to try and be able to give awareness a bit more of a chance. And that the first port of call is usually simply to be more mindful, to perhaps strengthen that intention or remind yourself of that intention to be aware. But then there are other things, and we talked about those things. But really, it's the questions. And so you could say, what would be helpful now? What's needed now in this moment? Perhaps it's more that the mind is getting overwhelmed, and awareness is that little mouse rather than the mountain of landslide of thoughts, or that we're getting lost in, or emotional storm that's we're getting swept away in. So what would be helpful, or what's needed now? And what would be helpful to awareness at this point? And again, as I was saying yesterday, it gives you a lot of freedom in terms of, well, actually, I think what would help awareness is to stop sitting here right now and to go for a walk. So you're not doing it to get away from experience, but actually because that would support awareness. That would be the condition, make the conditions a little bit more helpful or favorable. So that's the second thing. So clearly knowing, clearly comprehending, with a couple more questions. So then the third thing is I want to talk a bit about right view. And, excuse me. So right view, and I tend to equate right view and put it together with the fourth section of the Satipatthana Sutta, for those of you that are interested. So the section of Dhammas, which is a translation of the Dhamma itself, the teaching, but also particularly translates as phenomena. So I'll go into that a bit more in a bit, but I tend to put those two together. The Dhammas on the whole being the perspective from which to view our experience. So it's a Dhamma perspective, a helpful perspective. And right view is also a helpful perspective from which to be able to view our experience. So sometimes it can feel a bit strange that right view can almost sound a bit like an imposition, and that can feel a bit strange in a practice where you're looking to just see things as they are. But I think it makes more sense if you see it as the fact that we're always coming from a view anyway. We've got views going on all the time. My view, my point of view, my perspective, our views are shaped, formed, constructed through our lives, through different experiences in this life, perhaps in past lives too. So we're conditioned beings, conditioned by many, many factors. And that conditioning, one of the ways it manifests is through our personally held views and perspectives. So I find it interesting, with I think conditionality is a big part and of right view. It's the main way that right view is seen, and yet we tend to take it personally. It's my conditioning. We talk about my conditioning. I'm affected by my conditioning, So what we're doing with right view, if you like, is looking to just see that conditioning without the my, without the I, but a sense of conditioning sort of flowing through. Completely natural. And yes, some of that conditioning is helpful to growth, and some of it's it leads to suffering. So following the Buddha's teachings, what we're looking to do is find a way from suffering, find a way to free ourselves from suffering and others. So with right view, we aim to take if you like, a more neutral or unbiased. Get back to that word unbiased, which unbiased that enables us to recognize biases and conditionings in the mind. So right view enables us to take that unbiased stance on our experience, on everything that happens. So we practice in such a way as to make clear those inbuilt biases in the mind. And one of the big biases, the assumptions, is around self, around a sense of self that has all these experiences, that's in some way sort of owns all these experiences. Happy New Year, New Zealand. So a little saying from Sayadaw U Tejaniya in Burma that I really like, recognizes a bit of a conundrum. He says, the mind is not yours, but you are responsible for it. So the mind is not yours. It's not personal. It's conditioned, but we are responsible for it, and it's in our hands. What we do with it, really, what we do with this collection of conditions, of conditionedness, of habits that we inherit every moment by moment. We inherit again and again these biases, habits, whatever you like to call them. So the work of the spiritual life is taking responsibility, is looking out for our minds, looking after our minds, and in many different ways. I think all spiritual practices are about how we're able to work with our minds, with our experience. And this particular way is as I keep stressing, is a very relaxed or receptive way. So mainly the doing is through recognizing what's already happening, recognizing those habits that normally we act from. We act from a habit and imprint it somewhere on the world, and also further reinforce it in ourselves. And this time we're looking to, if you like, turn the lens so that we are recognizing those particular sort of tendencies and habits, how they feel in the body and in the mind, and learning to not act from them, not suppress them either, but able to be somewhere in the middle way of being aware of them. So a helpful question here can be something like, well, how am I relating to what's happening right now? How am I relating to this experience? And that may give you a sense of a particular view or a particular sort of feeling tone. I'm relating to this object by leaning into it, leaning into this, maybe a pleasant memory or a pleasant thought, or there's there can feel somewhere a sense of resistance. I don't want this. So that question can just help reveal not only what's happening, but how we're relating to it. And we'll be relating to it from some strand of our conditioned habitual being. So just almost done, but I want to come to this word dhammas again. And the translation of dhammas as phenomena, or we can talk about it as moments of experience, moments, happenings, arisings, or objects. So I've been using the language of objects of experience. And this is one way. It's one way to, if you like, to help reinforce that unbiased mind or impartial mind that doesn't mind so much what happens. Its main job is to be able to recognize it from the perspective of an awareness that's quite open, that's allowing, that's steady, that's willing to be with what's happening. So the language of objects can help in that we can maybe ask the question, am I noticing what's happening simply as an object arising? It's an aspect of it's conditioned arising in the form of a thought, a feeling, or is there a more sort of personal relationship to it? And you might feel that in terms of a bit of holding on, a bit of grasping, but it's mine. It's important to me. Analio says something lovely. He says, when something is important to us, we make a nest of it. We build a nest of it. I really like this. So it's like you can just, even if it's, not a very comfortable nest, it's full of twigs that stick into you and, I don't know, bird shit or whatever it is. It's my nest when it's important. So you might recognize even that sort of the feel of that, how that feels. Or there may be other images that do it for you when you think, oh yes, there's a sense of ownership around this thought or this experience. And again, this is not to celebrate that. If you recognize that, if you see that sense of self, that sense of ownership, this is something to be pleased about, not something for us to give ourselves a hard time about. We're seeing what actually happens, and to the extent that we're able to do that, then right view is working in the mind. Right view is recognizing more clearly what's happening. That Dhamma perspective is able to see things in a slightly different way, in a slightly less personal way, and therefore a more impersonal way. And I just want to finish by saying something about that, because that can ring an alarm bells sometimes. That to be is the aim to see something in a more impersonal way. What does that mean? What does that mean? Is that sort of distancing and again, it can bring in, I think maybe there's a something of a fear around an unhelpful sort of coolness or detachment. And And also a feeling of it being, is awareness a bit of a killjoy? It takes the pleasure out of things. And yeah, so I want to say, so again, maybe I'll just quote again in U Tejaniya. He says, we're not detached from life, but we are looking to detach from defilement, from the things that cause us suffering. And we're looking to detach in order to be able to see a bit more clearly, to be less involved and caught up in things. So we're still involved, but it's a wise involvement. There's a wise relationship to what's happening. So by using this language of objects or happenings or arisings, if you like, there's a sense of detaching from attachment, or recognizing attachment, but not detached from our lives or from love. It's the difference between when we're quite sort of meshed with experience and identified with it, to being less identified. A right view is fantastic at enabling us to let go, or enabling letting go to happen, to enable disidentification to happen. There's a word I really love, svabhava. It's part of our mantra, the Shunyata mantra is where I am mostly familiar with it. So nature, the word nature, and svabhava is empty nature, or empty of conditioned nature. So I think it reminds me of the right view perspective that there are only causes and conditions. That there isn't anything fixed. But yeah, there's, and if you like, I think this practice, we're looking to just make that shift more of the time. Every time we recognize that we're enmeshed with an aspect of our experience, or identifying it as my feeling, or my whatever it is, and we're able to recognize, oh, okay, there's feelings happening and there's thoughts happening, and there's, we still feel it, but we're not so caught. We're not so caught and identified with it. Then we're I think our experience or our understanding of conditionality deepens in those moments where we recognize identification or disidentification. We recognize them for what they are. Okay, so there you go. So let's see if there are any questions around this before we sit. So I'll leave it to Vajrapriya to field. So if you can, make it known, maybe unmute or put your hand up. Apparently electronic hands aren't so good, but I can see that Matthew's got his hand up. Yeah. Okay. So Matthew, do you want to go? Yes, you.
Me?
Yeah. You got your hand up.
I don't have my hands up.
Okay.
I would prefer
maybe
someone else to speak at the moment.
That's fine. That's fine. It looks like you're waving from here. Yeah.
Sorry, it just looks that way. I'm right. Okay.
Yeah. Fee. Where's
Hi,
fear?
thank you. Hi.
There you are. Yeah.
Uh, would you be able to say something? Because I feel like the theory about the second arrow is quite understandable, but when you do have aversion, and then you can have aversion to the aversion, it's almost like there's different layers, and it's quite easy for me with emotional things to alienate, to say, well, this is the way it is, I just have to accept it, but I'm rationalizing not having my experience. And then I don't know, even if I do come to my direct experience, there's so much aversion to it. So I just wondered if you could say something to that, because I can push away the aversion, I can push away the feeling, then I can push away the aversion. And so I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
if you have anything.
Yeah, that's a lot of pushing, isn't it? A lot of pushing and shoving going on. And I think that's what we do when we get into a conflict with ourselves, when there's something that is happening that actually we don't find it, we can't accept it in that moment. Maybe there are other moments we can. One of the things I find helpful is to recognize that the mind has got conflicted. There's this conflicted mind, and maybe give it that label. Sometimes it's like use the image of it's like a big ball of wool, or maybe it's one of those nests with lots of sticks in, and but it's all sort of scrunched up, and it's very hard to know what to do, I think. So that maybe that recognition, which itself can be a little bit of an emotional pause or step back, that rational, oh, the mind's in conflict. There's lots of feelings, lots of emotions, lots of I can feel the tightness in my body. You can know all that, but just very simply, it's all conflict. And that recognition can just mean that we breathe out. We breathe. We can have a clear breath, and actually, it's possible just to keep knowing that, just to keep okay, that bit that's able to breathe out, is able to recognize, okay, the mind is conflicted, all this stuff going on, it's like a big ball of something. That's enough. It's enough to recognize that, because there's a little bit of freedom there. Without, it's so tempting, I think, to try and sort it out, to try and sort of go into the big sort of mess, the big ball, and but actually from that, when there isn't awareness but there's aversion meeting experience, aversion of aversion, we can't really sort it out. So it's always finding that initial sort of space, initial sort of okay. And if we can't do that in the moment, perhaps we're not able to recognize in the moment, it's like, then perhaps what would be helpful here? And it's always what would be helpful in relation to helping support awareness, So it's not what would be helpful in trying to sort out that problem, trying to sort of get into the mess with the object. It's what would be helpful to the mind that's aware. And often it's implicit in that is that if you like, there's agitation on both the side of the object and the side of the observing mind. So what you want to do is see, is it possible? We can't control the object. There's a load of upset in the mind, then okay, just leave that alone. But what we do have some influence over is the way in which we relate to that experience, or the way that we observe it. So again, that might be just going to put my attention elsewhere for now. If I can't be with it as that big ball, okay, so do a bit of walking, meditation, a little bit of just being with the breath. And as I said yesterday, not in order for the thing to go away, but in order to calm down the observing mind, to help support and enable that to be better at being aware, if you like. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. That's great.
Sorry. Les. Where's Les?
I am here. Thanks, Vajradevi. Yeah, such a lovely talk. It's just about I struggle with, world crises and the urgency in the world, and we talk about positive acceptance and being with the way things are, and we need to go into these things without our biases. But how do we balance the urgency of the crisis in the world and the option of whether we struggle or not? It's such a difficult place for me.
Yeah. And I know that, you're not alone. I know that there are many people for whom, and including a couple spoken to on the retreat, who that is a very, very live issue, and not an easy one. I think it's really not easy. And I think maybe just one thing to say is that so I'm talking about a place of awareness where we're not, if you like, not resisting what's happening, and we're not falling into it. But the thing is, we will do both those things, because that's part of our training ground. We will end up losing our balance, losing our awareness balance, and falling into anxiety or whatever it is that's got very involved with the objects.
Enmeshed,
yeah. Or it may be that at a certain point we think, oh God, I can't be doing with that at the moment. I've got to sort of cut off from it. And I think, in a way, not to be worried about doing either of those, because we will, in whatever sphere, whether that's within the privacy of our own meditation practice or within the things that we're involved with in the world. But each time we remember, just be aware in this moment, what's happening now. Each time we do that, I think we strengthen that awareness muscle, if you like. We strengthen that quality of being able to be with what's happening. So however many times we fall on either side of the divide, I think that's okay if we can have the intention and build up the habit to the habit of being with what's happening right now.
It's kind of finding the balance and coming to the middle way, effectively, isn't it?
That's it. Keep finding that middle way, because we'll lose it all the time. We'll lose it all the time. Yeah. But not to. I think it's a very, very real conflict, and a courageous one to be engaging with. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Eric.
Really following on from the question that Les asked and your answer, that I can really see that this can help not to fall into the mess or not to be pushing it away, but somewhere there is going to be a decision to take action. And I wonder, there's almost in what we're talking about, I feel as though we're delaying a decision for action till a later point.
Can you say a bit more? Can you say What, because you feel you can't act unless you're in balance consistently? Is that what you mean?
Yes, I mean the awareness that you're teaching, that we're talking about, is just trying to make us aware of our biases, try to stop falling into the confusion, trying to stop us pushing it away. And I think perhaps it's then also giving us some time to get a better understanding of whatever that situation is. The point I'm trying to make is that somewhere along this process, action will be needed. We will need to do something.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's often not within our, it's not that we can choose that. So in a way, we take the moments where we can to, even in the midst of action, actually, it can be that either we can really clearly, I've had times where I've really clearly seen or a habit or a bias in the mind as I'm about to say something or do something. So it's clear seeing can happen any time, actually, any time. And Bhante talks very eloquent about this. I'll try and find his examples to read. Yeah, so the moments of clear seeing, as I say, will happen, and moments of awareness will happen within action. But we don't always have a choice. I mean, perhaps with some actions we do, but I'm just thinking of at the moment of all the healthcare professionals on the front line, as we talk about it these days. Then very little choice about the difficult conditions under which they're working, and yet. So there's a very strong objective need and task. So all you can do within that is just whenever possible to strengthen the habit, to find those moments. And there may be very, very few of them during a 12-hour shift or something, but actually just maintaining some sort of practice outside of that that will it will feed in as much as it can, as much as the conditions, in a way that the conditions support it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Big area. Thank you. No, good. Okay, great. Let's leave it there. Let's have a little break. 12 minutes today, I think. We'll come back at 22:12, and then I'll lead us in a sit. Okay, I'll lead us into this sit. May lead quite a bit of the way through it. And I just want to read a few words of Bhante's two short passages. I think they're both from Living with Awareness. Yeah, they are. So the first one, he says, the more you consider your experience in the light of the doctrines and practices taught by the Buddha, the clearer a sense you will get of what freedom from the fetters might mean. This is what is called right view. And then he says, different section. Meditation isn't just fixing the mind on an object or revolving a certain idea in the mind. meditation really involves, among other things, getting down to the bedrock of the mind, as it were, illuminating the mind from the bottom upward. It is about exposing to oneself, one's motives, the deep-seated causes of one's mental states and one's experiences, one's joys and sufferings. In this way, real growth in awareness will come about. So settling into the practice. And really giving that settling process time. There's no rush. It's important to be satisfied with whatever quality of awareness you find yourself with. Being curious, interested, and appreciative of that moment. Having a general sense of what's happening in your body and in your mind. Noticing where there's some degree of ease, acceptance of what's happening. And noticing places of discomfort or resistance. And seeing if it's possible to recognize both from a similar quality of awareness. An awareness that recognizes knows, sees and feels what's happening. Awareness says, can I be with this experience just as it is? A body pain, physical or emotional restlessness. How is it to be with the energy of anger or aversion? Dissatisfaction or boredom? What does boredom feel like in the mind and body? Being curious about that. There's nothing that needs to be pushed aside. We just notice when it's possible to clearly know. So every now and again, check the quality of awareness. Check the flavor of awareness in the mind. Not to judge, but to recognize clearly with interest. And remembering to check the quality of awareness and check that awareness is present. Reminding yourself, am I aware? And in this way, we align ourselves with our intention in practice. Strengthen the intention to be present, to be mindful. So when we're aware and awake in the practice, we can have a sense of when it would be helpful to take initiative of some kind. And that might be when you find you're getting quite lost in thoughts. But it could be when the mind is very quiet, or when it's very loud and perhaps overwhelmed. Asking yourself, what's happening now? Getting the bigger picture in this moment. If you find yourself quite involved in particular trains of thought, you could ask yourself, is it necessary or not? Is it in line with your value, your intention to be aware? Remember, each moment is fresh and new. So each moment holds the potential and opportunity for awareness. And perhaps using the language of objects, happenings, arisings, just as a way of training the mind to recognize experience less personally. To recognize more in line with Praticca Samuppada, with conditioning. And you might notice how you're relating to experience, and whether you can feel or sense within that relationship are taking something personally to be personal. What I'm thinking about, my sleepiness, my shoulder pain. Recognizing that habit, taking things to be me. And not discounting that, but just observing what's actually happening. And then noticing in those moments where what we notice, what we observe, has a more impersonal feel to it. Simply objects arising, happenings coming into being, persisting for some time, perhaps a very short time, and disappearing. Happening and gone. Perhaps to arise in the next moment and the next moment. But by resting with the awareness, we can have the perspective of each moment being a new arising and not fixing the objects unnecessarily. What is a thought in the mind after all? Do body sensations stay the same each moment? And remembering that you have the initiative, if it feels helpful, to, in a way, just focus your attention on one or two more tangible spheres of experience. Perhaps the sounds and physical sensations, or seeing and the breath sensations. Regrouping and resourcing mindfulness. Setting up the conditions for mindfulness and wisdom to work together. Setting up the conditions for clear seeing. Sometimes when we check the quality of awareness, it can be helpful to notice if some other quality, if we encouraged it, would be helpful to the overall quality of the mind. So we can intentionally bring the quality perhaps of something like patience, openness, kindly allowing, and see the effect on the mind just through bringing these qualities into it. Just by saying the words, that can be enough. So just pausing for now, and we're going to go into a short just sitting to end the morning. But you may wish to just spend a couple of minutes just reflecting on that practice, what you noticed, what caught your interest, and really clocking that. It's very helpful to be aware of any fruits of practice or anything that we felt we learned during the practice. Not necessarily doing a lot of thinking, but just allowing the mind to look back at the practice and see what comes. And then if you'd like, for the next 10 minutes or so, we'll just sit. But if you prefer, then feel free to stand or to walk or to recline in some way. And just to start us off, I'll read something else from Bhante, from Living with Awareness. Mind can contemplate mind. The ability to make consciousness reflexive, to become aware that we are aware, to know that we know, seems to be a specifically human characteristic. The human mind has the capacity to turn its attention back on itself and take a questioning attitude even to consciousness itself. In other words, although your state of consciousness is subjective, when you think about it, become aware of it, you make it into an object, a mental object, a Dhamma. You can turn you, the subject, into you, the object. You don't just experience sense desire, you know that you experience it. Your desire for sense experience or enjoyment is part of your subjectivity. But when you become aware of this desire, you make it into an object. So Vajradevi is just going to say a couple of things about what we'll be doing this evening. Have a more extended evening for those of you that would like to partake. Hand over to him.
Yes, hello. So it is of course slightly British centric, having a New Year's Eve practice session going up until midnight GMT, but we'll try and have a little something at 11 o'clock as well for the continental Europeans. What we're going to do is start at 8 o'clock as usual, the usual starting time for the evening ritual. There'll be periods of meditation practice. There'll be periods of, well, there'll be sitting meditation, but also a bit of moving and standing meditation. There'll be a fairly extended period of time for you to do your own thing, to reflect. There'll be an invitation to reflect on the year and eat whatever mince pies you have left over. And then there'll be periods of ritual leading up until midnight GMT. The evening will be centered around the figure of Vajrasattva. So like I did on the last online retreat, I'll make a little connection between the practice that Vajradevi has just been talking about really and the figure of the Buddha Vajrasattva. Probably at the 5 o'clock, in other words, at the next session, we'll have a little bit of a program that I can put in chat or something like that, just so you've got an idea of what we're going to do. And of course, it is an offering. You can attend as much or as little as you like, especially if you're in a different time zone. You may not want to stay up until whatever hour it will be your time. Yeah, so I'll put some kind of program up at the next session, I think. That's just a little bit of a heads up. And wishing the Australians a very happy new year in half an hour.
Great. And I had a thought too. I haven't checked this out with Vajradevi, but I thought it would be, well, I have a new white jumper, so I thought I'd bring it out in Vajrasattva's honor. So it's an invitation to, if you have a white shawl or some white clothing and you'd like to bring it out, then please do. Yeah, okay, so happy ongoing new year and see you a bit later.